Hey, welcome to another episode of Chad's Beer Podcast with my special guest Tom from the Crumby Beard. How you doing,
Hello.
man?
I'm good, thank you, sir. How are you?
Good, good. Well, this is I just said this in our review of Saint Bernardus 12. I said, this is my third show, and you're my second guest who has the same, no hair and beard look.
Yeah, it's the beer reviewer aesthetic. I think we've got to
Yeah.
coin it now.
Although your beard is way better than mine. Like, how long have you had that thing? Wow.
I've been slowly working on this since late 2018. I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a just go out and get it as big as I can. Like we trim it down, style it a
Mm-hmm.
bit, and just kind of gradually keep it going. I don't know how long it's going to go on for. Eventually, it will start to get annoying and get in the way, I'm sure. But for now, it's all right. It's
Yeah.
good.
And how long have you been doing this look?
Probably about a year before that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm fortunate enough that I'm not fully bald, but it's definitely not what it was on the top there. So I was like, no, it's coming off. It's fine.
Yeah. Because I've always had I've had the worst of both worlds is like I have like a receding hairline and like a bald spot in the back, but like I don't have like the like actual bald guy look where just the entire top of your head just disappears. So which I think is worse. It's like if I had the actual horseshoe, that pattern,
Yeah,
like I'd probably be okay with that. But you know what? I'm just like, like I'm just gonna take on that look,
you got to do it, and you look good. You look good with a shaved head. There's a lot of people out there who lose their hair and don't look good when they shave it, so they can't win either way. So at least we've got that going. Like it's fine.
Yeah, and like now that I'm kind of old enough, I have, gray beard, which I think actually looks better, at least in my
It's a good
opinion.
look.
But
It's a good look. Mine's getting there. I tell you, I keep finding more and more whites and greys every day.
how old are you, by the way?
Um, uh, it's one of those questions. I'm like, hold on, I've got to count back. Um, I'm 34, verging on 35.
Okay, because I'm 47. That's the thing with facial hairs; it makes you look older than you are.
Yeah, no one knows. No one can guess. It's always a mystery.
Sorry, something crashed outside, and my cats came running in through the window. I think somebody's moving or something. Anyway, so like I got this whole purple look tonight. I'm wearing this is the local soccer team, Orlando City, Major
Nice.
League Soccer. And I don't know if you're a sports fan or not, but I figured, if you're in the UK, soccer, football, like, kind of runs in your blood,
It was a
So,
good. It was a good assumption. I'm one of the outliers. I'm not massive on soccer slash football, whatever you want to call it.
mhm,
But sports wise, I'm a rugby fan, and we're currently in the middle of what they call the Six Nations, which is like
mhm,
it's not as big as the World Cup, but it happens every year, and it's kind of the big event every year when it's not a World Cup,
yeah.
um, which is national level. And Formula One is my other long term passion. I've been into that for basically my entire life. So
Yeah, that's funny because the Six Nations. So where I'm originally from upstate New York, it's about 3 hours north of New York City.
mhm.
In Troy, New York, there's a pub there called the Ruck, which is
Okay,
I guess is a
yeah,
rugby term, and they like
yeah, yeah.
on the sign it would say a Six Nations pub, and
Oh, nice.
it's one of my all time favorite beer bars. It's so nice now. Like if you ever come over here, I was just there in August after not having been there probably for about 6 years, and it was like a nice nostalgic trip there. Like it's so like they've done like it used to just be one floor, like now it's like 3 floors. And like my homebrew club back when I used to live up there, like we used to have our homebrew club meetings up there, and like they have like a whole kitchen now, and they have like 20 or 30 beers on tap, and it's just
Nice.
it's just definitely one of the best beer bars I've ever been to. Like in
Yeah,
as much as Americans love craft beer, it's like we don't really have like the pub culture like you guys have in the UK, where because like I mean I've never been there. Sorry, so I'm kind of going off of
right.
like what I've read in books and what I've
Yeah,
heard online and things like that. Of like where like the pub culture is kind of like your community culture of like where everybody kind of goes down to the pub and like hangs out on Saturday or Sunday or Friday nights or whatever, and it's like people even like bring like their kids and stuff with them, or did they bring kids, or
so,
am I
uh,
hearing that wrong?
Yeah, you're hearing that. How much of an in-depth answer do you want? Because I could probably talk for minutes about this. But I'll try and give you
We
the
all the
full
time in the
picture.
world, so
Okay, so just to answer your question about kids, so some pubs yes, others no. So there are not every pub is the same. There are definitely different styles. So there are some that are more like pub and pub eateries. They do,
mhm.
you know, it's beer and food. And they most of the time they have like quite a particular look and style to them, and they are kid friendly normally until like anywhere between 8 and 10 p.m.
Mhm.
And then it's like there's a hard cut off and kids have to be out. There are others that are just over 18s only always. They tend to be the more beer serious ones. But so that is a thing. But in terms of the actual culture of it, so it started, I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, to be fair, but the whole kind of reason it developed was because it was a place to go that was effectively nicer than your house. Like hundreds of years ago, that was kind of the ethos. Was you could go to a living room or lounge or whatever you want to call it that was nicer than the one you had at home, and they
Right.
served beer, and your friends were there, and you could play a game or whatever. Like, so it was because you know you can imagine what housing was like in the UK and during the Industrial Revolution and all that kind of thing. Well, our houses are still way smaller than yours most of the time now, even though they're pretty nice. But back then it would have been even more extreme. So that was kind of how it started, and obviously it just becomes a generational thing. And you know, you take your kids at one point, and then the kids get old enough, and they're going on their own, and it just kind of keeps going. The culture's changed a bit in recent years. There's definitely less people going as regulars because people have found other stuff to do, I guess. But yeah, you find it kind of like the old mining towns in particular, like the old industry places. They tend to have a much stronger pub community feel to them compared to in the cities now.
Yeah, I wanted to show you my old beer bar back in Albany. This is it's called 𝑩𝒆𝒆𝒓, and it's basically based on a hey, why isn't this all right? Hang on, I thought I was sharing the whole screen. All right, here we go. All right, so this was in all this bar is closed, but this is where I used to go in Albany where I lived. And it was based on an English bar, and like they actually had 6 cask beers there. And this is
Yeah,
like cask beer in the United States is like super rare. Like you can only
yeah,
see it in like major big cities or like super
okay,
nerdy beer bars like this one. So these pictures are from like 10 or 15 years ago, so like the quality is not that good.
yeah.
I
Got the
think Adnams,
Adnam signage. Yeah, they're still
mhm,
going.
Tetley's,
Technically, they're
John.
still going. They don't make very good beer, but they're still going.
Yeah, so here's like some random pictures of like the bar around. Yeah,
It's not a bad interpretation for sure.
I thought I had more pictures than this. Oh yeah, 𝑩𝒆𝒆𝒓. Like all the so like if they had this awesome thing, so like you would go and you would have a there's a computer in the back and you would type in like your member number and it would print out a list. Here it is. So like this is a list of everything that they have that you haven't had yet and the
Oh,
price. So it's both it's you know anything that's on cask and anything that's on draft and then bottles and cans, you know. And then when you give it to the bartender and they'll take a highlighter and they highlight what beer you have and then when you leave you put it in the basket by the door and when you come back next time it's on your menu. And then like there's a tally and then after you hit so many beers you get um like after 50 beers you get a t-shirt, after like 150 you get a free case of beer. And after 200 or 250, you get in the mug club. I don't know if you saw those mugs, but they would
oh yeah,
actually, they'll etch whatever design that you want,
nice.
and you get anything on tap. I think it's like a 10-ounce mug, but like it's like half price or something like that. But I don't know. It was a lot of fun. So I always want to visit over there. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I used to actually be in the U.S. Navy, and
Okay,
we never went to. We floated by England. I saw the White Cliffs of Dover.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know how far that is from you, but, I've been
5
to
hours drive probably.
oh, wow. I've been to, Sicily, Malta, Copenhagen, Denmark, Iceland, Halifax, Canada, and then Puerto Rico, and a bunch of like Colombia and Guatemala, and a lot of
Yeah.
places in Central America and stuff like that. But sorry, we never got to go to the UK. I always wanted to see that. So I want to take a trip there someday. But I think you actually need like a visa now to go over there. Just even if you just want to be a tourist.
I'm not sure. I think we definitely have to do something similar if we go to the US. We definitely have to fill out some sort of immigration card and that process. But I think you do apply for it in advance, but I don't think it's as kind of like convoluted or intense as actually like trying to emigrate. Like it's just
Right.
basically like you let them know you're intending on going just with enough advance so they can just run a basic check to make sure you're not on any wanted list, and then they go, yeah,
Yeah.
fine. Like, that's
It's
it.
like, I just want to go see the sites, you know?
Yeah.
Have you
It's
ever
definitely
visited?
enjoyable.
Have you ever visited over here?
Once, and I was quite young at the time, did the usual Orlando Disney stuff. I went about it a very convoluted way. So I've been in 3 different states, but only in the airports of 2 of them. So if I remember rightly, it was like flew into DC, and then maybe it was would it be a hop to New York and then Florida? Would that be the right way around? I don't know what it was, but anyway.
You probably would go New York, DC, Florida, because
Yeah,
that's
that might have
north
been
and south.
it.
Yeah.
I've been to Canada once as well. That was probably 15 years ago. But that was just skiing. The world's most expensive skiing holiday. It was good though, and very cold.
Yeah, that's something I don't miss because I'm in Florida now. I'm actually Disney World's only about an hour from where I live.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you ever visit down here, let me know because that's right around the corner from me.
Yeah, I would like to do another US tour at some point. That'd be good for sure.
Yeah. So how did you get the nickname the Crummy Beard?
That was just a working title. that was very much like I'd made the decision that I wanted to start a YouTube channel. I've been into like video photography. I just enjoy trying to edit
Right.
stuff, but like, without a purpose to do it, like without anywhere to put the final result, it kind of I don't know about you, but I certainly get to the point where I'm like, actually, I get bored quickly if I've got nothing to do with it afterwards. You know what I mean?
Right.
It needs to go somewhere. So I was like, right, I've been thinking about it for years. Isn't an exaggeration. Like I've been watching YouTube for an incredibly long time, since the real early kind of 2006, I guess, was the launch. Something like
Technically
that.
2005, but nobody was really
Right.
using it till about probably
Yeah.
2007 or 8.
Yeah, really early years stuff. The kind of the first creators that actually started putting out constant uploads. Always liked the idea, but it just got to that point where I was like, right, I've not really got the time, but if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I'm just going to do it. And I was like, I don't just want to use my name, and I don't know what the channel's actually going to be about, because I was just like, I know I want to make videos, and I'll find just through trial and error what it is that I want to make videos about. And I kind of knew there was going to be some kind of food or drink thing in there at the start. The beard part's obvious. And the crumbs was kind of the crummy was kind of a play on crumbs as in food crumbs, but also the fact that I knew it's like when I started, my video quality wouldn't be very good, so crummy as in a bit naff. You know what I mean? Like it was just kind of like, yeah, that was it. And it was like, it's a working title. I'll probably change it in 3 weeks' time. Never have. just stayed. And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that the logo you have, the cartoon. Did you design that or did you have an artist do that?
No, I did that one. I had a more basic one to start with. You can probably see it on the pump clip here. I'll take it off and show you. So that was the original one. It was a very basic kind of outline thing. And then I redid it probably coming up for a year ago. Spent a lot more time over it, and a bit more research and how to go about it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, my kind of creative background is very much photography driven. So like I know how to use Photoshop, but I don't necessarily know how to illustrate things properly. So that still probably wasn't done properly, but you know, as soon as you know the basics of a program, it's not that much of a big step with enough tutorials to get to where you want to be. So yeah, that's what came out of it.
That cask handle there, that's from like a real cask, or you don't have
Yeah,
a cask in the basement, do you?
no, I wish. So it does work. You can plug it in. So this is from a company called 𝑃365. I bought it. They didn't give it me, sadly. But so it's like it's a proper beer engine like you would get in a pub in the UK, but it is designed for home bar use. So all the mechanics and internals of it are nigh on identical to what you get in a pub, but they just make it the kind of the base of it and all of that stuff out of a slightly cheaper material because you're not pulling 200 pints a day out of it. So it doesn't need to be over engineered, I guess. So it makes it much more affordable. So yeah, it does work. I have used it. I don't use it very often because trying to keep beer at the right temperature, and ultimately you can only buy it in quite large amounts. And reviewing beer, you want to get through lots of different ones, not be stuck with the same one for weeks. So it doesn't get all that much use, but it's a nice prop. It looks good. So
yeah. Do you homebrew?
I've done some. Yeah. I wouldn't say I was great at it. Again, it's kind of the same problem. I really enjoy the process of doing it and trying it at the end, but I need to kind of get back into it and start doing smaller quantities because I've done a lot of full grain brewing, but kind of buying it in kit form. It's still raw ingredients. It's not like a starter kit, but they always sell them in enough to do like 30 liters, and that's just too much when you've got all the other stuff to try. So
yeah.
But yeah,
I used to homebrew when I lived in New York, and when I moved to Florida, I sold all my homebrewing equipment, and then I tried to do it again once I got settled here, but my batches kept getting infected, and I think it's just about the Florida air. Although I got these swing top bottles like Grolsch or something.
Yeah.
And I just got them for free off somebody on Craigslist or something, and they had Brett in them. And I remember doing a saison, and it was this Brett saison that I didn't even plan on it being, and it was awesome. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the best beer I never even planned on making." But it's like you had to drink it quick because like otherwise, like it got like spoiled like so fast. But
interesting.
yeah, I mean that'd be cool. Like you could homebrew and like you could like use your cask. And it's funny they call it an engine or beer engine because when you hear the word engine, you think of like some complicated machinery. I think it's like fairly simple. It's just basically like a vacuum pump, basically.
Yeah, hand operated vacuum pump. Yeah, I have done it with homebrew. I have had homebrew going through it actually, which is quite satisfying. But yeah, I mean, one day when I've got a little bit more space, move somewhere else, and can feasibly have it kind of cask stored in a kind of basement environment. I can't do that at the minute. So yeah, one day it will get some proper use, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's like if you're gonna be a home brewer, is like you need like a lot of friends or a big family because you make like so much beer, like you can't drink it yourself. And ever since I moved from New York to Florida, I don't have like a big circle of friends anymore. It's like that's one of the reasons that I don't really homebrew that much anymore. It's like I don't have I can't drink all that beer myself. I need somebody to give it away to. I used to be in a homebrew club back in Albany. We used to have like competitions and stuff like that, and constantly new members coming in and out, so you get to try other people's beers. And like homebrewing is like a great way to actually like learn about beer, especially when you drink other people's beers, and especially when they screw it up, because then you taste like diacetyl and acetaldehyde and DMS and things like that. Like, if you only drink commercial beer, it's like you don't really tend to get like the flaws and stuff.
Yeah, it helps you pick out when they do end up with flaws. Like you mentioned it the other day about was it what beer was it?
Sam Smith's?
No, it was a Czech.
Oh, Pilsner Urquell?
It was Pilsner. Yes. About that, you said you felt like that had started to get a lot of diacetyl in it, and like that's a flavor that's tricky to really pick out unless someone puts a beer in front of you and says this has a lot of it, and then you know what that flavor is. But when you're homebrewing, you end up messing up, and quite often your first few homebrews are definitely going to have quite a lot of diacetyl in there.
Yeah,
especially if you don't leave it long enough. and then you can pick it up straight away once you know. Like it's undeniable.
It's also like kind of like a natural byproduct of a lot of English ale strains. Like, I drink a lot of Samuel Smith is like the only UK beer we can get around here, and like unless like maybe like Old Speckled Hen, which also has it in it, which like that Yingwood yeast strain, like it's very diacetyl forward, and like I mean, in the right beer in the right context, it's okay. I don't mind it, but it's
Yeah.
like last week I did my Tuesday night beer school by myself, and I did Sam Smith's Tatty Porter versus an American English style porter,
Hmm.
and like the American porter was like very clean, almost like a lager, and then the Sam Smith's was like super fruity estery, but also a little buttery. And it's just like such a world of difference.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't mind it if it's, done in the right context.
Yeah, that's pretty typical for our porters. They're not clean. Like
Yeah.
they are these very rustic, earthy. You're not quite sure
Mm.
how much stuff is in there that's meant to be in there, kind of thing. But it gives it its own charm. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
it's got this old school work, because you can go to any bar and order a generic mass-produced beer and end up with something clean. Like if you want something clean in the UK, you go and order a Guinness, because it's always going to
Yeah.
be there's going to be no off taste of that unless the
Yeah.
pub not kept it right. But yeah, the other stuff, yeah, much more that way. It's quite common for our trad beers.
Are you a big fan of real ale?
Yeah,
Like I mean, you have the handle there. Like I don't know how ubiquitous or lack thereof is cask beer, because like I follow beer news and all that stuff. I have since I started the show. Like camera campaign for real ale. Like I follow it in like the news, but like we has like, which is funny for me because like I'm just like observing something that's happening in another
yeah,
country.
yeah,
Um, like they're trying to like kind of save this format, and like I said, in America, I think I've aside from Mahars that I showed you, I can't even really think of many other bars that have had cask beer. Maybe like if you go to like a beer fest, like maybe they might have something, you know. And then I've
yeah,
heard like a lot of breweries will cheat. Well, they'll just fill a cask off of a keg, you know,
yeah.
s- and it's like
Not the
cheating
same.
like that.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
In the UK, if you go, excluding like craft beer specific bars, because they will be pretty much all keg tap
Hmm.
setup. But any other pub or bar or whatever, it would be very unusual to go somewhere that had less than 4 hand pulls on.
Hmm.
Like that would really be quite odd. It's still massively available. Camera are really pushing for the use of that style from kind of the smaller brewers. Quite a lot of the time, hand pulls will be from with things like Old Speckled Hen, and from brewers that are owned by like Molson Coors or Heineken or something like that. So it's like it is still cask, but it's not the it's overly refined and probably not
Yeah.
very good cask, right? So that's really what they're kind of marching on. But in terms of the amount of people drinking it, it's still very much a thing. Craft beers lent it a little bit. Like there is definitely more keg tap beer being drunk in the UK now, but yeah, it's not enough to, I think, damage that traditional format. It's not going away from what I've seen.
Yeah. I mean, from my experience from all those years with Mahars, like I found that the cask presentation, as they always call it, like it kind of it's like that way of drinking the beer. You pretty much like have to have like English style beers with it. Like I've had like I think I had like a few American IPAs on cask, and like it kind of messes with your head because like it's a totally different texture.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's almost like nitro, which is that how Guinness like with the nitro got started? Because nitro in beer is like a fairly modern invention because even CO2 forced carb is like a modern invention because like we've been drinking beers for centuries, and
Yeah.
the cast method of you know of that's how you dispense the beer, that was the norm for like
Hmm.
hundreds of years. And then you know, somebody figured out how to force carb beer, and then somebody figured out how to do nitro in there. And I saw your video about the Guinness 2-part pour, and that
Yeah.
like really put it together. I was like, yeah, it's just like a archaic thing of like where you would pour the cask and then let it settle and then you know top it off. And
Yeah.
I think that's all it is. You know, I'd love to see maybe this is out there, like some science channel where they could actually where they could break it down because like I would think like from like a physics point of view or a chemistry point of view of like the Guinness 2-part pour is like is anything changing like at the molecular level when you have like a 2-part pour? I don't know. I'm
So
not a
I
scientist.
mean, yeah, when they did it originally, and in that video, so when it was 2 pours, but it wasn't. So they poured from one barrel that was um, really basically had a lot of yeast in it, so it had a lot of CO2 buildup, natural CO2 buildup in that barrel, which would result in a very frothy and active beer. Let that settle down, but then they top it off with one that had very little yeast put into the barrel, so it wasn't very active, not a lot of
Mhm.
CO2, and that would bring in a bit more flavor and a bit more body because it's thicker effectively because there's no CO2 in it or less CO2 in it. So it was trying to like balance one off against the other because I don't know why they didn't just produce one style of cask that was right. Do you know what I mean? From all the way through, but I guess they figured out that it's actually easier to produce one that's really active or one that's underactive rather than exactly the right one every time. I guess that might be part of it. I don't know, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. And Guinness, as far as I know, never went down the regular keg tap route. It was always cask, and then flipped into what they do now with the nitro stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's
You
I'm
heard the
not.
Guinness the foreign extra stout?
Yes.
That one's
Uh,
pretty good.
did you have the Irish one or the Nigerian one?
It must have been the Irish one. I've heard about the Nigerian. I've never can't get that around here, obviously.
Uh, well, we shouldn't be able to get it here, but we can. It does appear
Mhm.
from time to time. So the Nigerian one is brewed with I can't remember the name, but basically it's not the main fermentable crop is effectively not like a Nigerian sugarcane.
Oh, like
Well,
sorghum or something?
yes, that's it. That's the one.
Oh,
And
well, if
so
it's sorghum, then it's like a gluten-free beer.
it probably is. I might be able to tell you. I've got one sat behind me. Hold on. Let's have a look. So they look exactly the same. And for the sake of anyone watching, that's what the label looks like. But the Irish and Nigerian one look identical. You've got to go onto the back of the bottle to find out.
Well, it
Um,
has that, I think that green trim gives it away. 'Cause
that
the
might be
ones I've
different.
seen here don't have that green on it.
Okay, that might be the difference. Um, but does it say that it's gluten free? It's also got maltose syrup in it, so it might not be.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's very it's a very different experience, despite being kind of the same beer, just because of that different fermentable in there. It's yeah, it's worth trying. It's not to everyone's taste though. I quite like it.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, I've heard from a few other people that have had try it and they've gone, no, I prefer the Irish one because it is quite different.
You got a little beer fridge down there?
Yeah, I've got a little stuff. If I turn to the side, that's my little setup. So I've got the beer monster. Now that's I don't. Do you get the 5 liter mini kegs in the US?
Um, we do, but I don't buy them.
Yeah, so we get them quite a lot here, including our little kind of craft and micro breweries because they were quite easy to fill. So what that allows me to do is go down to my local craft brewer, buy a 5 liter mini keg, put a little CO2 canister on the top of it, and dispense it out of a tap, which is quite nice.
Mhm.
And then that's just sat on. Yeah, I can't remember the literage of this beer fridge, but it's a sub cold one, so that's the brand. But it does pretty well. It can hold probably I don't know 50 to 75 beers in there,
Wow.
which
I
is
got
pretty.
this mini fridge. This was like my Christmas present to myself. I should have got this a while ago because like I had like so much beer, like it's running out of like taking up all the space on like the actual food fridge. And I was like, why don't I
Yeah,
just get a mini fridge with a clear door? That way people can see what's in the fridge. But this has a blue light like I never turn. I should probably move this a little over so it's more in the camera. But well, actually, I did. And every time I did that, like every time I get on my chair, I would keep hitting the fridge. So I moved. So it's like you can only see it barely in the frame now. So you can only see a few beers that are coming up
Yeah.
instead of like all the beers. Um, I had to get this. You can't see it, but it's like this like heavy duty like metal. It's like a table basically. I think it's meant for like a hot water heater or something like that,
Okay.
and, to hold the weight of the fridge. And
Makes sense.
I should have got this years ago, just so I could like have this on camera so people could see what else is
Yeah.
coming.
And it's also good to be able to have a fridge that's at the correct temperature. I don't know what temperature you keep your kind of kitchen fridges at in the US, but it's normally 4 degrees
Yeah,
for ours in the UK, and it's just too cold for most beers. Like you have to leave them out for a good while before you can properly review them
yeah.
at 4 degrees.
I have this one set to the warmest or least cold setting.
Okay.
So I'm not sure the actual temperature in there, but like I can. And actually, in a lot of stuff, like when we just did the St. Bernard's 12, like I still let it sit out for like 10, 15 minutes before we started
Yeah.
drinking. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I
by the
have
way,
mine set up. Sorry, go on.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I have mine set up so that like the back of the fridge is always a bit colder than the front. I have tested it, and I'm trying to. I think it's, and it also varies a bit between winter and summer, but in general, I keep it so the back of the fridge is good for lagers, like straight out, so like 6 to 8 degrees depending on the time of year, and then the front of the fridge is kind of 2 to 4 degrees warmer, so all the dark stuff sits at the front. So
Mhm,
most things can just be taken out and tested within kind of 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes you have to go a little bit longer with it's a
mhm.
big dark impy or something, but yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I know we've been going for like a half hour. I probably should have showed this at the beginning, but I wanted to show the if everybody's watching at home, this is Tom's channel, and one of the things that drew me to your channel was your great thumbnails. And actually, I used one of these in my how to design
Yes.
thumbnails video last week or whatever. Um, and actually, in the shot that you're like the scene that you're in right now, this looks like almost like a movie kind of camera, or like it's a pretty high quality setup. So, can you talk about a little bit of like your technical thing,
Yeah.
like as far as like the camera and like also like how you design thumbnails?
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that my kind of creative background was in photography.
Hmm.
So the camera I did not buy for YouTube. It's totally unnecessary to start a YouTube channel with, but I already had it. So let's use it, right? It's a Nikon Z6, which is their kind of first generation mirrorless
Hmm.
equivalent of a DSLR. Um, uh, which I'm using the standard kit lens, but it's a full frame camera. I've got it max zoomed out, which I think is at 18, and it's probably running at a f4 aperture for real photography geeks. The rest of the setup, it's pretty simple. So this is actually my home office, right? And this room, it looks a lot bigger on camera than it really is.
Hmm.
So kind of nearly half of the room is like the camera to that back wall. And I've got an Elgato key light, which is kind of the next most expensive thing that I bought for this setup, which is basically a big panel light. Reason I got that is because ring lights and glasses look really
Hmm.
odd, right? I'm sure you've experienced this. You can end up with little light
That's
pupils on
that's
you.
what I have. I have two ring lights right here.
If you've got enough space to have them pointed in, which is probably
Yeah.
what you've got, then it's not too bad. But I need to have mine face on just because of the layout of the room. And every time I tried using that, you end up with weird circles in your glasses that
Yeah.
it annoys me. So it's a big flat light. I've got an Elgato mic, which is just like USB microphone. It's positioned just out of shot. Like you can't see. My finger is touching it now, but it's
Mhm.
just it's outside of the camera shot. And then this bar is actually a outdoor bar from IKEA. It's nothing special. It's cheap as, but I wanted a stand-up high bar for a while, so it gives me the options. I can do stand-up videos. I can sit down. Just shakes it up a bit.
Right.
Looked into getting one made, making my own. And then when I stumbled across this at a fraction of the price it would even cost me to do it myself, I was like, for now, this will work. I'll upgrade it one day, but it's fine. And then that's just some cheap shelving from Amazon that's got all my whiskey bottles on it behind me. And obviously I've got the fridge and stuff as well. In terms of thumbnails, where do I start with thumbnails? I've tried loads. If you scroll back through my catalog, like they do start to vary. You'll see like the most recent year are probably quite consistent. Beyond that, like it starts to get quite chaotic. What I've tried to do is develop a theme and then develop thumbnails going forward, still utilizing some of that theme. So it's kind of, I know in your video you talked about like having your own avatar or logo on there, so it's like distinctly your brand. I didn't necessarily want to use my logo on every thumbnail, so I've kind of developed like the text is always very uniform. It's the same font, it's the same style.
I agree with that.
It's got some. They're not. It's not always.
I'll show the viewers what you're talking about.
But like, so yeah, you can see like sometimes I use like a block over one word, sometimes a few words, sometimes all the words. Like it just varies. I try and make the product image really prominent because sometimes people are viewing these videos on a tiny phone screen.
Right.
And I know a lot of people like to put the whole bottle on the image, like top to bottom, or can or whatever. Like that's fine, but people like the top of a bottle and the bottom of a bottle are giving no information to the viewer.
Yeah, you just need to see the label.
Yeah. So that's it. I try and include, begrudgingly, I include myself on every thumbnail through no form of vanity, but faces on thumbnails work for user interaction and attention.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Like I would rather not, truthfully, but in the testing I've done, it seems to work. So I've continued to do it. There is the odd one where that's not the case, but you can see one there. But yeah, that's it. It's about developing a style and also not overcooking it, because there's only so much information you can portray in the fraction of a second someone sees that thumbnail for.
Yeah.
I try and not duplicate the title in the thumbnail text, because you've got two opportunities to get information across to a viewer, which is in the title and in the thumbnail. I try and make those things different so that if one doesn't appeal to someone, the other one does.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to show my channel real quick. So, like all my new ones are like just the beer with on the desk with the man cave background blurred, and then so if we sort by oldest, like this is me in my kitchen in Albany, and like I'm trying to have like this uniform, like font at least. Like I'll change the color to kind of match the label. I mean, like all these beer reviews are like from 2008, so I mean, there's not much you can do. I mean, it was only shot in like a low res camera. But so like I had an artist make this logo. Actually, I have two of them. One is like the modern one where I have a shaved head and a beard, and then if you just go back a few months, you see the regular one with hair and clean shaven. And I think like like just having that in every thumbnail, I think if people see it after a while, like if they recognize it, because I thought about putting something on there like Chad's beer reviews, but I think I have like too much text,
Yeah, people aren't clicking through for the name of the channel, right? And that's always you've got to. For me, it's always about like identifying why would people click through, and I've always got two thoughts in my head for this. One is there are people who are already interested in the specific product, beer, whatever it is that you're reviewing, and that's what goes in the title, because when they're searching for it, you want that to come up pretty quick, right? The other side of it is people who follow you and like the kind of content you do, but might not necessarily be looking for that particular beer or whatever it is, but you might be able to get them interested based on something that happens in the video, something about the product, something, you know what I mean? Like more abstract, but builds interest in it if they weren't interested in it otherwise.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know. I think it's so weird because like, I've been doing this BeerTube thing since 2008, and like there was other people doing it at the time, but like none of them are really around anymore, or like they're not like like they're not really like BeerTube channels. Like they kind of like do like movie reviews or just whatever is on their mind. You know, just like a autobiographical lifestyle channel.
Yeah.
And you know, for a while I was doing like top 20 BeerTubers of the month, and it was like it's really hard to like keep track of like who is considered a BeerTuber, because like even your channel, it's I don't know if it's like 50-50 beer and whiskey, but I mean it's definitely like there's a lot of whiskey stuff on here, or you know, liquor or whatever you want to call it, that um
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like, and I mean also like the name of the channel is The Crumby Beard, not, you know, Tom's beer reviews, you know,
Yeah.
or Tom drinks whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Um so
And
like I don't
that's
know, it's just that's one of the reasons I stopped doing the top 20 beer tours. I'm like, this is too much of a pain to like who's actually a beer tuber and who's not, you know.
yeah. I
Um
mean, for me, someone who is an active beer tuber would be someone who's reviewed a beer in the last month.
yeah, I
That's
agree.
kind of my kind of cutoff for it. Lots of people do other stuff. There's loads of reasons people do other stuff, and everyone's is different. Some people feel like they need to do other stuff because they don't necessarily make enough profit off their channel if that's what they need to do. Thankfully, it's not something I need to do, but some
Mhm.
people do need to do that. So they need to get other things in there to keep more views coming in, because ultimately, beer's a real niche when it comes to review and watching content on it. Lots of people enjoy beer. Not that many people enjoy watching people talk about it. So
Yeah.
there is that aspect of it. For me, I mean, 90% plus of my channel is beer reviews. So, like, if you want beer reviews, there is a lot to go at. It's not all beer and whiskey. I mean, my first whiskey review was probably 2 or 3 months in to me having the channel. So, like, it started early, but then I probably went a year before the next one because it was a subject I didn't feel like I could deliver enough information on. So, in the background, whilst I've been doing beer reviews, I've been learning about whiskey as well, because I knew that I wanted to incorporate that because it's something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But I don't review just anything. It is specifically beer and whiskey at this point. And it'll probably change. And it also helps me not get bogged down, because I find, like, I don't know, I get easily bored. And so if I feel like I have to review a beer, I'm almost like, really? But when I've
Yeah.
got, like, on the days I fancy reviewing a whiskey, I'll review a whiskey. On the days I fancy
Yeah.
doing a beer, I'll do a beer. I am trying to do 50-50 at the minute, because I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, he's got bored of beer and he's left, because it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, like, and there'll be some weeks, like in December, it was almost all beer because Christmas beers come out, right? So it's all exciting, it's all interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, I try and balance it out, and it's more about keeping myself mentally interested in doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you ever read this book, Tasting Whiskey by Lou Bryson?
I haven't. I've currently got that on my Amazon wish list, I think.
Yeah,
I'm
this
sure
one's
it's
pretty
that one.
good because like this is kind of like the whiskey equivalent of Tasting Beer by Randy Mosier. Like this is like the beer 101
Yeah, yeah.
encyclopedia. Um yeah, like I'm not a huge whiskey drinker. Like I usually have like a bourbon in the fridge at all times. And I know like that's verboten. Like you're not supposed to like refrigerate spirits, but
Probably not, but
I've
yeah,
never really
right.
understood that. It's kind of like I always thought like having like a bar at room temperature is more for like because like when you go to an actual bar or pub or restaurant or whatever, is like they're all out at room temperature so that you can see what they have, you know. But then like
So
you're usually gonna put like ice in it, or you're gonna mix it with something that's cold, like soda or Bailey's or something like that. But
yeah,
um
it depends. It depends what it is. So, in terms of review, I don't put ice in or anything. Sometimes the really strong stuff I'll water down.
mhm,
Um, Whiskey's a really finicky one because it tastes best at, like, the best way to describe it is, like, in beer terms. The less complex pilsner you want to drink at 4 to 6 degrees,
yeah.
and the big impy you want at room temperature, right?
Yeah,
Because that's
yeah.
where you get to really appreciate the flavor. Well, whiskey's just the big impy, but a few times over again. So you still want it at room temperature to appreciate the flavor. But when it becomes too warm because your hand's been on the glass or whatever else, then it can go over the other way as well. So it's quite a difficult one.
Yeah, how's that stout drinking, by the way?
Yeah, so we've not talked about this since you hit the record button, I don't think. So just for, yeah, if anyone's wondering, I'm currently drinking a 13% Buffalo Trace barrel-aged imperial stout from a brewery that's, I mean, probably, if I stood on my roof with a powerful enough set of binoculars, I could probably see it. It's pretty close. But it's called Blue Monkey Brewery. They're my hometown brewer, the closest one to me.
Wow.
They make some fantastic stuff. And they're one of those interesting breweries that I don't know how it kind of fared in the US, but in the UK there was a very distinct like introduction of craft beer in about 2012, 2013. It was basically Brewdog. Brewdog did this. Let's not lie. So Blue Monkey started, I think, in 2008. So like by craft brewing standards, they were still considered old school, but obviously by trad beer standards, they're still really new. So they kind of sit in this middle ground. But as a result, actually, they create fantastic craft and trad beers. So I'm happy because I like both. So yeah, they're very, very nice.
I just noticed that you just posted 2 hours ago a review of Bourbon County.
Yes.
And I mean, your thumbnail kind of gives it away, but so I mean, it looks like I haven't watched it yet, so I'll watch it after this. But how would you compare what you're drinking now to Bourbon County?
Bourbon County is special in that it feels very relaxed. And of course, because there was some comments on that video already actually saying, "Oh, I thought this was too sweet" or whatever. And I thought that was interesting because I feel like that compared to really modern craft impies, certainly in the UK, is not sweet at all. Like, kind of hype beers, hype impies, whatever you want to call it. In the UK right now, like tend to be very sweet, very sickly, heaps of chocolate, marshmallow, peanut butter, like every flavor they want to slap on there. Yeah, pastry stout stuff. Whereas that felt like a really considered, like that felt, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just, I mean, I do describe it in the video. Go watch the video. I can't remember what I said now completely. I try and film quite a bit in advance so that if I like want a week off the booze, then I can do that without it affecting the videos, which is important to do sometimes. So that was a couple of weeks ago that I actually filmed it. But in comparison, this one feels like a big, heavy, modern impy, just absolutely supercharged with some of those Buffalo Trace notes. Like it's all there. Whereas obviously the Bourbon County is blended from different barrels, and it is almost like a fine wine. That one, like this is more flavorful, but it's also more raw. Do you know what I mean by that? Like it's got this, I don't know,
Like the actual like barrel character.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's more woody notes. The actual like the ABV of it comes through a lot more. It's stronger. I mean, it is actually stronger anyway. It's 13%, whereas the Bourbon County was.
Yeah, it's like 15. Well, I think it's like 13. It depends which one you get, but yeah, it's about 13, 13.5, something like that.
Oh, actually, no, it might have been about the same. Thinking about it, but anyway, the ABV on the alcohol on this one is coming through a lot more, but it's also newer. Like they only bottled and canned this 3 months ago. So whereas that Bourbon County had been sat in my fridge for at least 2.5 years, and then however long before it got to me. So, but they're very different things, but both very nice. Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to choose which one I'd want over and over again. But and also there's that kind of home. Do you get this with your breweries, like that hometown attachment thing? Like I like it because it's brewed over there.
Yeah, like not so much in Florida, but when I was in New York, like because a lot of the beers that I reviewed on this channel have been from ironic. The name of the brewery is Southern Tier, but Southern Tier is like a term in New York for all the counties that are on the Pennsylvania-New York border.
Right.
It's like it's the Southern Tier of New York, so it's like the south of the north, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they made some of the best like big huge imperial stouts, and like they're actually starting to bring them back. 'Cause they made like some of the original pastry stouts, like the chocolate and the mocha, the Java. But anyway, I had a whole bunch of questions. It's funny. I was watching your channel. I just wrote it down on a notepad, and I can like barely read. It's like I hardly ever write like with a pen and a
Yeah.
pad anymore. You
Oh,
know?
I'm the same. Like I
Yeah.
effectively type for a living, not actually as
Yeah.
a typist, but spend all day every day on a computer. Like, yeah, I can type way faster than I can write now.
Yeah, I would kind of like going back a few minutes where we were talking about like making the thumbnails and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Like as a viewer, as a fan of your channel, I would love to see if you ever have the time. Could you do like a behind the scenes
yeah,
video where you show like how you shoot it and like how you like make the thumbnail and all that stuff? And I know because like
yeah,
I was watching your channel, and I noticed like like you'll be talking, and I'll notice like it'll slowly zoom in, and I noticed like
yeah,
when the edge of the video got to the edge of the cask handle,
yeah,
like that's like when it would stop, and then like it
yeah.
would kind of zoom back out, and um, I like you could probably I don't know how your camera works, but I don't know like if you can do the full filmatic or effect like your entire background would like be blurred. I don't know if that's possible, like that, like a full cinematic effect like that.
I could do it with a different lens for sure. So
Mhm.
the problem with doing that with what I've got, well, in this space, is that that wall behind me is not quite far away enough from me to
But it's
properly
gonna blur, yeah.
blur it out. So if you let me try and let's do a demo, right? Hold on.
Okay.
Let me zoom this in. Manual zoom. So if I do that, you can now tell that they're probably more blurred, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they look more blurred, but you can tell because of the zoom effect. Whereas when it goes back out, wrong way. There we go. Yeah, now it doesn't look as blurred, but actually it's just because we're looking through a stream and everything's not quite as sharp as it could be anyway. Like if you would get the raw
Right.
file, like, it is blurred out, but just not maybe not quite enough to tell. Sometimes when you kind of uploaded
Yeah,
it to YouTube and it's compressed the video and all that stuff. So, but
yeah,
yeah, a behind the scenes shoot, I could do that. It's not that magical. It's a
yeah,
lot of editing,
yeah.
is
I
all it
mean,
is.
I must be like the only one that cares about like beer tube quality because like there's so many people. I would say like I would say the majority of us they just like get in a camera, talk, and then upload it. Like no editing, no thumbnails. Like even Simon from the Real Ale Guide, like he's been kind of taking that approach basically since day one. I mean, I will say he does make pretty decent thumbnails that are mostly text and they're very eye
Yeah,
catching the way that he does it. But it's also a lot of it is also personality. It's like
yeah,
if you're just interesting enough to watch where people will just listen to whatever you want to talk about, you know?
yeah.
And I also notice
Big
like
time.
99.99999% of us are all men. There's
Yeah,
there's like almost no
no,
women in this space, and if there are, they're like the wives or girlfriends. Like there's no there used to be
oh, there
like
is.
there's no beer tubers that are like just women doing it by themselves.
There is one. The name of the channel is completely lapsed. I'll send it you later. I'll dig it out and find it. Um, she's in the US, and
Mhm.
like I got this weird spate of I wasn't following the channel, and I would get every time I logged into YouTube for about 6 weeks, it would recommend me her videos every
Was
time.
it
Production quality is through the roof, by the way. Like it's insane. Like she's got to have a production team on that. Like,
tasting niche?
yeah, no, I can't remember what it was called, but
'Cause
it was
I remember her, but she hasn't made a video in, like, I don't know, 5 years or something?
no. This is like this. I think this channel started like in the last 2 years.
Or is she in a
I'll dig it out and
bikini?
send it to you. But there are some women in the scene, which is good. I can think of another one actually. Is like a beer school lady from the UK. Again, my memory is awful, so I can't remember the names of channels. But I will dig them out and find them. And if they're still active, I'm sure you'll put them in the description of the video.
Oh my god, is she oh, yeah. Look, this is the girl I was thinking of, Tasting Niche, where she wasn't really a beer reviewer, she was just kind of like a random blogger,
Right.
and, like, so, like, the last video was 4 years ago, and then the last one, it says 3 weeks ago, but I don't
Okay.
think this has anything to do with anything.
No. No, it wasn't. It wasn't that one. I'll dig it out and find it for you. I can't remember what
Okay.
it's called now.
Yeah, I remember, Simon at the Real Ale Guide, his wife used to be in a lot of his videos, I don't think she's
Mm.
in anymore. And it's funny, I just posted on my shorts, I posted a review me and Mel did of 6 Point Righteous Ale or something yesterday or 2 days ago. Yeah, so I don't know if you saw my beer school on making shorts, but like I know you've done shorts on your channel.
Yeah, so
But you do them once in a while, huh?
I have a contentious relationship with YouTube Shorts, which is I'll upload a short which I think is good. YouTube will show it to 3 people, and that's it. But my most viewed video on this channel is a short from 4 years ago, and it's terrible. And it's done an insane. There you go. How many
Oh
views is
wow,
that?
341,000.
Yeah, insane.
I was gonna say, did you ever follow Social Blade?
Occasionally.
Because I was looking at your Social Blade, and like last November, you got like 117,000 views in 1 month. That's awesome.
That's what I was trying to think. Last November, so that would have been after the Oktoberfest beers.
Or
That
was
did
that
pretty
when
well.
this Guinness video?
No, that was I originally filmed that like in the first couple of months of having the channel. I ended up putting it on a separate channel. It was when YouTube Shorts was a brand new thing, and
Right.
I read some bad advice that said, "Oh, you don't put it on the same channel because it might ruin it." That was bad advice. I ended up taking it off that channel, shutting that channel down. It was just called the Crumby Beard Shorts. It was pointless.
Oh yeah.
And then uploading it to my current channel maybe a year ago. It has done a lot of like it's just incrementally done a lot of views. It's weird. But
Huh. It's funny. I've been trying to like, I'm on Instagram. You're on Instagram, and like I'm trying to like follow like every beer account on Instagram, and like I'm following like 6,000 people, and I have like 3,000 followers. So it's like, for every 2 people you follow,
yeah,
1 person follows you back. And YouTube used to be like that years ago. Like in
yeah,
the early days, I don't know when they stopped doing that, but like, because if you go to like your followers, like it only shows you people who follow you publicly, where they actually on their
yeah.
channel page it shows. So it's like you can only see like a small fraction of your followers.
Hmm.
This guy is huge too. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Let me show this. I think he's in Ireland.
Oh, so this is the guy that used to be the Guinness guru.
Yeah, Derek. Is it
Um,
pronounced Derek or Dara?
I think it's Dara. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
he gets tons of views. It's funny. He does the same video as you on the Guinness Nitro search.
yeah. So he was previously called the Guinness guru. He did insanely well. That's another. I mean, to be fair, I don't want to loop him in with the people that just hit record and then upload it because that's not true.
Yeah,
He
he's
does,
like a
he does,
real like
he, he does edit
professional.
his videos,
Yeah.
but he edits his videos and has that personality hook that just keeps you watching.
Mhm.
So I'm very aware that I probably don't have that, and therefore try and make up with it with editing. That's all I can do. I can't change who I am, right? So let's,
Yeah, that's
or at
how I
least,
am too.
yeah. Or if I did change who I was, I wouldn't be being honest about it, right? If I started every video really over enthusiastically, it would be a facade. It's not me.
Mm.
And if I ever am really enthusiastic on a video, it's because the thing I'm going to film, I'm really excited about and it's genuine. So that's just what it is.
Mhm.
But yeah.
And look, watching you drink that Imperial Stout makes me want to break one out. The problem is, I don't know if you're like me, like all the beers that are in my fridge, like these are like for reviews, and it's like,
Yeah, you get to that point where you're like, I want a beer, and you look like, I don't know which one of these I don't want to review now.
I know.
Yeah, I get that problem. I get that problem.
Also, I mean, for me, it's kind of early in the day too, because like after we
Yeah,
finish this, I got stuff to do, and then like I'll come back tonight, and then like maybe I'll shoot a review or something. But
yeah.
have you? I don't know if you've noticed, like on Instagram, there's like so many women on there who like, I don't know like the name for it, but like they're like always like in like bikinis or like half naked and stuff, but like they're holding craft beer. I think like there's
Yeah.
this girl Hoppy Floppy who has this huge boobs. I think she was like
Right.
one of the first people to do it. Like I would love to
That's,
know like what professional brewers think of like these like this like
wow.
quasi free porn but like where people are using their beer like as a prop in it,
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, especially like if that was a thing and it was back in like the 70s or 80s, then they'd probably be quite happy with it because that's basically what beer commercials were anyway.
Yeah.
But obviously today it's very different, and especially with the craft brewers, like I don't know about in the US, but certainly in the UK, the craft brewers are very, like very. They tend to be very hardline, like left politically.
Mhm.
With there's no acceptance of using women or sex for marketing or anything like that. And
Right,
I'm not
right,
saying
right.
it could be either, but you know what I mean. Like, but it's so it's to the point where it's almost kind of radically put in.
Mhm.
Is this going in the main podcast or not? How much more do I say?
I mean, I can take it out if you want, so just
No,
let me know.
they're not all that way. They're not all that way, but there's a very well, you've seen it with the BrewDog stuff, right? Like
Mhm.
how anytime they do anything slightly wrong and everyone comes down on them. And I'm not saying they
Mhm.
shouldn't do that. To be fair, like they've done some, or have allegedly done. Let's save myself here. Allegedly done some very sketchy stuff. So, and rightfully so. But yeah, I would be interested to know what brewers think of that. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
probably doesn't gel with their own ethos in a lot of
yeah,
cases.
because like it's not the brewery putting this out. This is just some girl on Instagram that I think like it's kind of the opposite where it's like they genuinely like this stuff and then like they're gonna like there's pictures like of girls on Instagram like they're inside the shower like taking a shower like drinking a beer, and they're like this is what I'm drinking today. Like I've seen some dudes like do parodies of it, it's funny the first time you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
it, but then after 50 it's kind of stupid.
I'll be honest. Why are you going to ruin a beer by taking it in the shower? I know there's a whole
Mhm.
thing about shower beers, but it's got to be pretty mediocre beer because, like, you're just going to water that stuff down.
Yeah, well, I
Water's
think
going
they
to
drink
get
it
in there.
they suck it straight from the can, but
Yeah, it's still going to. I don't know. You're going to end up with little bits of like body wash
Mhm.
in there.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. It doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Don't take your good beer in the shower, people.
I know, it's like,
Doesn't
how
work.
long are you showering that you have time to like? Because 'cause I'm in and out,
It's true. It's like
I can see, like, if you're taking a bath, because like, there's so many pictures of women, like, where they have a glass of wine and cheese or whatever and candles, and they're in the bath for, like, 2 hours or whatever. Um,
But I've had an impy stout in the bath before, one time, and then I realised it's a right. It's really difficult because then you've got a soapy hand. You're trying to pick the glass up, it slips. Like it's not.
yeah.
It still don't do it. Well, it's not good.
I don't think I've taken a bath since I was, like, 5 years old.
It's a very infrequent event for me. It's normally when like I've got shoulder pain or something. I'm trying to ease it off,
Yeah.
but the impy stout helps with that as well.
Yeah, something else I wrote down on my pad here is, like and a lot of the stuff I wrote down when I was, like, 5 milligrams deep, so, um, like, I was watching your channel the last few nights,
Yeah.
and, like, I something that it never occurred to me before is, like, channels or just, like, the way that the setup is kinda going back to, like, how we were saying, like, you have, like, this, like, kinda cinematic setup, and it's kind of like, if it looks like it like you're in a movie, then, like, the viewer at home, like, thinks of you as, like, a fictional character. So it's kind of like I think that's, like, kind of like how our impression like, our it's not like, doesn't matter throughout cultures, it's just like you see somebody on TV, in
Mhm.
movies, even politicians, it's like they're, way on the other side of the country or they're just somewhere
Yeah.
else, and you only see them in the news or on TV and newspapers, movies. So you just think of them as fictional characters, and it's like I think, like, when you have that kind of like I said, cinematic kind of setup. Like, I mean, mine isn't really cinematic. I mean, I think it's much more professional than like the average person who just is in their kitchen or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you kind of take on this like I don't want to say godlike status, but it's definitely a maybe demigod status or
Don't give me a
you know,
complex. Don't give me a
yeah,
complex. We don't need that.
a
Um,
celebrity type thing.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe having a nice camera is a problem.
Mhm.
In the because I always think like beer reviewers, people want to feel like they're talking to their mate down the pub.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a good thing about just doing it on the fly in your kitchen, sat on your sofa, whatever. Maybe what I'm doing is not the right phase, but ultimately the reason I enjoy making videos is because I want everything to be as perfect as it can be and make the best thing. And for me, the visual is really important because if I make videos that I think I would want to watch, and that's the only thing I can do as like a metric to say I think this is good.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying every video I've ever made is one that I want to watch, but ultimately I know what that video is going to tell me because I was there, because I did it. But you know what I mean? Like stylistically, I mimic's the wrong word. I take inspiration from the videos I do enjoy on YouTube from other niches, not beer stuff,
Right.
and then try and implement that in my own work.
Yeah, I'm like that too. But it's like when you're just reviewing beer, like there's only so much you can do, especially because ours is nonfiction. Like I have tremendous respect for people that like kind of do like a fictional thing, like where there's some like they're playing a character or something like that, or
Yeah.
like you can even do uh, getting off topic here, but anyway, I just something I always wanted to ask you. What's in that corner over your left shoulder? What's
That one?
no, the other side?
That one? Oh,
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
That thing.
yeah.
So I said earlier I was a lifelong Formula One fan.
Is that
That
a racetrack?
Yeah, that is the outline of the Belgian Grand Prix circuit, which I believe
Hmm.
to be the best racetrack in the world. Is what that is.
I had a feeling that's what it was, but like every time I would turn on one of your videos, as soon as I see it, all I can see is like kind of like a horse in stride. It looks like a
Oh, that's
thoroughbred or
interesting.
something.
That's interesting. So I always thought it looked a bit like a 80s Star Trek ray gun.
Oh yeah, I could see that sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's what it is. It's my favorite racetrack. I've been fortunate enough to go to 4 F1 events at that track. Belgium's not that far away from the UK when it comes to driving.
Mhm.
Like you can get to Belgium quicker than you can get to the top of Scotland. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's not too bad. But depending on where you
Speaking
are
of
in the UK, I can just about get to Belgium before I get to the top of Scotland. So but yeah, it's that's what it is. Basically, like it's a bit, I've always thought about changing it, but obviously like, the outer of this side,
mhm,
obviously the middle one's Guinness, but the other two are the Gulf livery and Ferrari posters, and then
mhm.
that's the racetrack thing. It's kind of just my kind of tip of the hat to my other passion, but maybe it weirds people out. I don't know. I've always been like, do I change it? Do I make it more beer and whiskey based? I don't know,
Yeah.
but I kind of like them. I don't know where else I put them.
Speaking of racing, like, because I'm in outside of Orlando and Daytona's less than an hour from here. Like the
Sure.
Daytona 500 is next
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
I don't know if you follow stock car or NASCAR at all, but um, yeah, it's kind of
Not
cool to like
strongly.
live somewhere like that close to like a major sporting thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, also, I'm looking. I mean, the UK's the British Grand Prix circuit is Silverstone. That's only an hour away from me as well, so I
Mhm,
get the best of get the best of that. I don't follow NASCAR and Daytona occasionally. So is Daytona? Hold on a minute. Occasionally watch a bit of Indy because we
mhm.
get coverage of that on our Sky Sports F1 channel in the UK. So I'll plug into that occasionally. But Daytona and Indy in the same thing or not?
Well, there's NASCAR is like stock car, and then the Indy 500, like that's like the Formula One style cars, like the open wheel, I think they're
Yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right,
So
Leo
what's
wants to be
Daytona?
on the
Is
show.
Daytona open wheel or is that
No, that's like it's stock car, so
a stock car? Okay,
it's
so it's not the same. Okay.
indoors, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Leo.
You've got a cat.
So this is one of my cats, Leo. Whenever I do the show, he wants to be on camera. You
He's
said you had
matching
3
your
dogs?
t-shirt.
You happy, dude?
You got
Every
a
time
you
I'm
got a
if I'm wearing a black shirt, like that's when they always have to jump all over me. I'm like, oh, getting cat hair all over me.
Yeah, I've got huskies and they shed all the time. We can't wear black clothes.
Oh, you have huskies? Oh, I love
Yeah.
huskies. It's funny, actually, a lot of people in Florida do have huskies, which you would think, like, I don't know why, because they're cold weather dogs, you know?
Yeah, they're pretty good at adapting. As long as you're not forcing them to exercise in that heat, they're
Mhm.
pretty good at adapting to stuff. But I don't know if I'd recommend it. You see it in Europe as well. Like there's like a disproportionate amount of huskies in Spain, which is right in the south. That's probably kind of similar,
Mhm.
similar kind of latitude. Is that right? Which way around is it? Yeah, latitude too. Kind of Florida and Mexico, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I remember when I was a kid in school, I forget which class, but I remember my teacher saying you can remember the difference between latitude and longitude by just the way that you say it. Like, because latitude, like your mouth's going this way,
yeah,
and
yeah.
longitude, your mouth's going this way.
Yeah. My mind just went. Long's got to be down. Like surely that's got to be
Yeah.
down. So yeah, but yeah.
Um, it's funny because the last 2 episodes with Kyle and with Joe, like, I have, like, this standard list of questions, and they're all like, I feel like I should start out the show with these questions, and we're already over an hour into it, you know?
You can rapid.
Um,
We can rapid fire them if you want. I don't
yeah.
mind.
Well, I mean, basically, kinda we sorta hinted at this before, but, like, um, what was, like, your inspiration for doing the channel? Like, you said you had been watching other beer tubers or
No, well, no, I hadn't.
Or
I've
was it
been
was it
watching.
like, you know? Because like, when I mean, it's probably not fair for me to compare because like, I started doing it in 2008, there really wasn't anybody else here,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I remember thinking about it, I was like, because I remember going on YouTube way back then and, like, looking around for beer reviews, and there was, like, maybe 2 other people doing it at the time, I was like, "Well, if I start now, like, I'll be ahead of the curve," you know? And
for
then,
sure.
you know, fast forward, 15 years later, now, like, oddly enough, like, I mean, there are probably a couple hundred beer tubers, and actually funny, the majority of them are in the UK.
Yeah.
Um, the scene over there is like you guys get way more views. I think you guys actually care about this a lot more than we do. I think in America it's all about Instagram and TikTok. So I
Okay.
think maybe it's just like a attention span thing.
Maybe it's
Like
definitely going that
blogs.
way here as well. But yeah.
Yeah. So like, what was you know? Were you like, oh, I can do it better than those guys, or like, I like those guys and I want to be one of those guys?
So my impulse for actually starting the channel was simply that um, I am quite bad just at acquiring hobbies. Truthfully,
Mhm.
like I just like to take on new things and explore and get into stuff. Been doing photography for years. Loved it. The problem with photography is you need to go and find new stuff to take photos of a lot of
Mhm.
the time, right? Or at least, like, I don't consider myself to be a particularly great photographer. I'm probably better than the average person, but I'm not. I don't feel like I'm good in photography circles, right? So, and while some people can probably make absolutely incredible bits of art just around their own home, that's not me. I always felt like I need to go out and find the
Right.
next place, the next thing, which is fine. But that actually takes a lot of you need to be out of the house a lot, right, for that. And it's something I still do, but I'm like, I do that now when I go away on holiday, vacation, whatever, and do bits and a few times a year, not as a constant monthly thing. So it's like, well, I've got this camera. I've always been interested in editing videos and creating videos, but I had never had anywhere to put them, show anyone, that anyone would be interested. I was like, and as I said, been following YouTube since the early days in terms of just generic YouTube content. I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Give it a try. Just pick something, pick a subject. And I was like, noticed that food reviews were pretty successful on YouTube overall. And I was like, that meets kind of all the marks. I am a foodie. I can do it in my own house. It's relatively low cost. You know what I mean? Like it hit all the
Mhm.
marks to be like. So the first couple of videos I did were around food, and I was like editing these things, and I was like, it's okay, but I don't feel like I'm passionate about the thing I was talking about. And then, interestingly enough, it was this time of year. So my channel's just had its birthday, which must be is it 3 or 4 year birthday? Must be 3.
Mhm.
Um, and the Six Nations was on. We talked about earlier the Rugby Six Nations, and I was like, you know what would be great, because the rugby and beer have had they are intertwined. Like rugby culture is beer culture and vice versa in a lot of cases. So I was like, it'd be really cool for every match of the Six Nations to drink a beer from the two countries that are playing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, so I did a series on it's called the Six Nations of Beer. Ultimately, they were way too long, badly edited, didn't really know what I was talking about. But what that did was show me that actually I've been sat in pubs for years, boring my friends about the intricacies of the beer I was drinking. Because I was trying a new thing every time I went to the bar, and they were drinking the same stuff they always drank, right? So I was like, hold on. No, beer is a passion. I've been going to beer festivals for years, all the rest of it. I was like, I don't know why it took me to that point, but I was like, okay, maybe I could review some beers. Did a YouTube search, found Simon from Real Ale Craft Beer, used to be called Real Ale Trail.
Real Ale Guide.
Yeah, Real Ale Guide.
There's also Ginger Ale Trail.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Ginger Ale. Yeah. That guy. Do you know Raggy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Raggy lives in the same city as me, weirdly enough. Because I was doing searches for Blue Monkey beer, see like is anyone covering that. There was this guy called Raggy doing it. I've now met Raggy loads of times. I know, nice guy. And I was like watching these videos, like these guys know what they're talking about. But every video I watch is like we were talking about before. It's sets up camera, hits record. There's awkward space blanks in it. There's no background music. There's no editing. They turn it off and upload it. I was like, well, what I want to do is that, but with the production side.
Right.
I'm not suggesting that my knowledge and my ability is to produce a better video in terms of content, because some of those guys know way more than I do about actual beer styles and history and everything else. I was like, maybe I can add a different twist on it. It's not necessarily doing it better, it's just doing it different.
Right.
And that's basically where it came from. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was way before you started making videos, but I mean, he's still pretty popular. Did you ever see Beer Geek Nation?
I don't think so. Doesn't
Okay,
ring a
because
bell.
like he was huge about 10 years ago, and because he would do like, actually, I'll just bring it up. It's so much easier to just show than tell,
Mm-hmm.
Let me where am I? I can edit this out. I still have this website up. All right, so this is a Beer Geek Nation. This is a beer mail that he did. I should probably find like a beer review. Look, he has 41,000 subscribers.
Oh wow!
And he just like bounced. He just like disappeared like 5 or 6 years ago.
There's ups and left.
So like he had like this whole animated opening, and like this is kind of the inspiration of how I do mine now. Is like he would do like he would break down each aspect, and like he had like these animation, so like aroma, and then
Oh nice.
taste, and then I think he probably had one on mouthfeel, the verdict, and like his are fairly short. I mean, this is only 2 minutes and 39 seconds. That's
Okay.
It's kind of like my one criticism is like it's a little too short. I mean, it's
Yeah.
good to be succinct, but you don't want to be like, this is way before TikTok. Like this is 2017. And like he has like a huge, he changed his setup a bit, but he's always surrounded by like whatever whales that he has,
Yeah.
There's this awesome book. You should check this out. It's called the Beer Geek Handbook. And I feel like I wrote this book. Like it's all about, I mean, I think it's more like kind of like from an American perspective, but it's like about just like being a beer geek, like with bottle shares and things like that. And like going to breweries, like and waiting in line at, 6 a.m. or whatever. And then, so I don't know what the point of that was, but my point was like kind of like how I kind of revitalized this channel a couple years ago, like where I would film myself pouring the beer and like the label off camera. That way I can like voice over it, you know. And actually, and it's funny, actually
Okay.
watching some of my old reviews, I was doing something similar, like all the way back in like 2009. But yeah, so like this is something that like because I used to do a show just like this like 10 years ago. I didn't have a name for it. It was basically a podcast back then, and
Yeah.
I would just interview other beer tubers like how I'm doing right now.
Hmm.
And something I would always ask somebody is like, who the hell do you think you are going on YouTube telling the internet and the world what you think about beer? Where do you get off, you know?
Yeah. That's a good
Sarcastically,
question.
obviously,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No, it's a good question. There's like I've got a 2 point answer to that one.
mhm,
One side of it is completely selfish in that whilst I have lots of friends that are into beer,
right,
I don't have friends that are into beer to the level where like we're all willing to go out and spend, frankly, an absurd amount of money on something obscure and do a bottle share or something like that. Like they're into,
right,
like they're not buying naff stuff at the bar, but they're also not like they're not taking time out of their day to go and hunt down the latest craze thing, right? So the one part of it is an avenue for me to kind of talk to other people about that area that I'm interested in, that I don't get to do in my normal life. The other side of it is I genuinely believe there is enough room on YouTube for an effectively an infinite amount of beer reviewers because everyone's palate is so different.
right,
What everyone needs to do is go and find the people that they just gel with on a generic level in terms of they watch the video, they kind of like it,
mhm,
and then go and drink some beers, the same beer that that person's reviewing, watch the video with it, and go, am I picking up the same thing?
yeah,
Once you've done a few with one person, you go, every time like that person's talking my language, right? That's the person that you go to for beer recommendations because you've got a similar palate.
yeah, and it's also like the case of Beer Geek Nation that we were just watching, like he always had his finger on the pulse of like the beer, like the whatever was the up and coming or the must have brewery of the moment. Like, have you heard of? You've probably heard of like Hill Farmstead or Treehouse.
Treehouse, I have, yeah.
Yeah, like they're like the it brewery, but like they're
Hmm.
and it's like it's not like you can just go to the store and buy them. It's like you have to like go to the actual brewery in Massachusetts to get it. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, it might be available in some stores around there, but you know, like they have like this like cult following. And like that was like Chris was like he was like one of those first people that's just like, okay, what is like the beer I absolutely have to have? You know, like he was somebody who you would watch. I'm like, I'm trying to do that with this channel because like I get a lot of my beer on this app called Tavor, where
right.
they get, you know, I get all this like it's funny because I get like most of my beer online now because the beer scene here is like so terrible. Like I sent you a picture of, you know, Total Wine, which is like the big, it's a chain liquor, you know,
Yeah,
wine beer store, and they have a very limited selection of stuff from overseas. Even the stuff from America is fairly limited. You know, it's like I don't know what happened. It seemed to happen about maybe whenever hazy IPAs took over. Is just like every beer store contracted. I don't know how it was there, but for the last 10 years here, like when I used to live in Albany, I would go to the beer store. They had like everything, like the most niche style, like beer to guard, English mild. I'm trying to think of like what's like a super rare style, like smoked beers, um, you know, like some of the Belgian sours and stuff like that.
yeah.
Like you could
Saison.
find it. And then around 2014, 15, everybody just started making hazy IPAs, pastry stouts, and kettle sours. Like you so if you
It's
want like a lager, you gotta go to the German section and just get
yeah, yeah,
something from Weinstefan or Paulaner.
yeah.
Is that how it
It's
is
pretty
there?
similar.
Or
It's pretty similar here. I feel like we're I don't know what it's like in the US. In the UK, there's often been this idea that beer trends change about every 10 years.
mhm,
Craft beer took off in a big way in the UK 2013, 2014. Quick math tells you it's about time for a
yeah,
change.
yeah.
And we're seeing that now. Like, are you familiar with Verdant? brewery in the UK. You might not be, but
No.
they are like I don't want to say they're our Sierra Nevada because they're not that old. They're not that established.
Mhm.
But in terms of like pushing the craft beer scene forward in the country, they to a similar degree, I would say. Um, they have a hype beer that they release every year. It was like basically their first beer that did really well. It was a double IPA called Putty. That put them on the map, and every year since they've done a special release of it. And every year, BeerTubers go out in droves, try and find it, pick it up, review it.
Mhm.
This year, I have seen a notable decline in people talking about it, the amount of people that reviewed it, the people that did review it, no one watched it. Like it's gone very dead very quickly. That and maybe it's circumstantial, just the ones I happen to see, but it really feels like it has just gone out in a fizz. Um, and I think that's indicative across the board. Like I think the IPA era and the overly sweet Impy Stout era is done. I think people are going to continue to push it because they think they can sell it, and it'll probably work for another year, just about. But the problem we've got is there's no obvious replacement yet.
Mhm.
With everyone's bored of what everyone's been doing, but no one knows what they want, and that'll be really interesting to see where that goes.
I don't know. All of a sudden, now non-alcoholic beers are like
Yeah,
the it thing of the moment here. Like everybody's making like 0.0 beers, and it's funny because I told you I basically I'm like I do Instacart, DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats,
hmm
Amazon. Like I deliver stuff for a living, which is actually what I was doing today.
hmm
And somebody actually ordered non-alcoholic like 0.0 ABV beer because like up until a few years ago, like so-called non-alcoholic beer, it was still like 0.5 ABV. And like you would still have to
no,
actually you had to be 21 to buy it. You had to card somebody. And this guy, he just bought all he bought was non-alcoholic beer, and I figured I was gonna have to card him. And then when I made the drop off, it didn't make me card him. I was like, "Really?" I mean,
interesting.
there's no alcohol, and I guess kids
That's
could
a
buy it.
weird. That's one of those. Yeah, what do you think about this? I saw like a one of these kind of like social quandary questions got brought up. Right, it is entirely reasonable if you've got a desk job, say, and you actually go
Mhm.
into an office and whatever. Like, it's entirely reasonable to sit there with like a large coffee that's got like 4 shots of espresso in it, like
Yeah.
massive stimulant. It's entirely allowed and reasonable to sit there with a can of Monster Energy, same thing, worse even. You can sit there with a full fat Coke, big one, how much sugar through the roof, still fine. But if you cracked open a 0.0% Erdinger in the middle of the day,
Yeah, that'd be
probably,
pretty weird. Yeah.
yeah. But actually, it's better for you. There's no stimulant in it. It's actually quite good for you in terms of like gut bacteria and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
what you know what I mean? Like, it's just that we're in this oddity place where because it looks like beer, it's not acceptable. But there's no
Mhm.
reason. There's no reason you couldn't have that as like a energy giving. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
you heard this, but like apparently a lot of athletes have started using alcohol-free beer as recovery drinks.
Yeah, I think it's like for the vitamin B or something.
Yeah, because it gives you better minerals and
Mhm.
vitamin levels than a lot of the actual sports drinks because obviously they're all synthetic. There's no reason really that you shouldn't be able to drink one of those while you're driving because it's actually better for you than most of the other things you could drink. But it is
Yeah.
still frowned upon. It's a
Yeah.
weird place that we find ourselves.
Yeah, and it's like what you were saying earlier about energy drinks and stuff, because I think like the difference between like caffeine and alcohol, because like one's an upper and one's a downer, it's
Hmm.
gonna like alcohol actually is gonna like handicap you, I think like that's like whenever you see like gangsters in movies, like they're always like drinking like bourbon and scotch and like always drinking like hard liquor, it's kind of like showing how tough you are. Like I can drink this something that's gonna handicap me, but like I'm not letting it handicap me. Whereas
Uh,
you would never see like Don Corleone like drinking. I mean, maybe espresso or something, but like you wouldn't think of that as like adding to their image as like a tough guy.
You
Like
say,
a
yeah,
hitman is gonna drink a scotch, not a
I,
monster.
no, it's true. And whilst you absolutely shouldn't drive, operate heavy machinery, or do anything else after
Mhm.
having a beer, um, at the same time, the effects of a caffeine crash or a sugar crash after having too much of it is going to impair your ability to work.
Yeah.
Like it is. So, whereas an alcohol-free beer isn't, because there's nothing in it.
How
It's a weird one.
the one of the differences between the UK or probably all of Europe and the United States is because, I've been to Europe, been to many different countries, and like because you're that whole area is like stuff that was built there hundreds of years ago is still there. Like the roads are like this wide.
Yep.
Buildings are hundreds of years old. Everything's like so cramped and so close together. Like it's like a lot of the cities, depending on where you live, like you can just walk wherever you want, or you can bicycle,
Yep.
or you have like, fairly easy to come by public transportation. But like the United States is different because everything's so spread out.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until like the advent of Uber like 10 years ago. Um, because like when I remember I was showing you the pictures from Bahar's, that was like,
Mhm.
2009 to 2012. Like that bar was probably about 5 miles from my apartment. And like I didn't really have the option of buses and certainly not trains. So I mean you pay like $30 for a taxi, but it's like I'm not paying $30 to go to the bar and 30 bucks, screw
Yeah.
that. So like everybody would just drive drunk. And now you have like Uber and Lyft. Um has that I don't know, do you guys have like a big problem with like drunk driving over there, or is it because you have the public transportation and probably I know you have Uber over there now,
Yeah.
or does everybody just ride a bike or e-bikes
No,
or
the UK is not that bike friendly, compared to other places in Europe. Anyway, probably is compared to the US, but certainly not compared to, say, the Netherlands and Belgium and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, Drink driving is an issue, but probably on the decline in general. I've heard some reports that like the last couple of years it might start to creep back up a bit, but like in general, it's definitely getting better. Similar kind of thing though, like if you live in our cities, like you said, like everything's really close together and you can walk, you can easily get a
Mhm.
bus, tram, train, taxi. That's always been the case. So cities, you always get outliers, you always get idiots who just decide they're going to do it anyway, and
Right.
that's one of those things. But in cities in general, it's not been a. I don't want to say it's not an issue because it definitely is, but it's not a. Like I don't know anyone that I can think of who's willingly got behind the wheel of a car after too many beers on a night out
Mhm.
ever. So that should tell you that it's not a common thing, right?
Yeah, you
The
never had to like
majority of people are not willing to do it.
take one of your
Um,
friend's keys or whatever.
yeah, it just isn't. There's never any suggestion when we go on a night out that someone's going to drive because we don't need to. We can all get back a
Mhm.
different way. However, on the flip side, I have seen in country pubs when I've gone on holiday vacation, stayed in a rural area. I've walked to the pub for 3 miles from wherever we're staying, and I've
Mhm.
seen people stumble out and stumble into their cars because, like in the US, there's no other way to get to the pub if they live 4 or 5 miles away. They've done it. It's not right, and they shouldn't have done it. And I'll be honest, on those roads, it's even more dangerous because you can't fit two cars wide anyway. So this is
Mhm.
an accident waiting to happen. But it happens, but in general, yeah, it's on the decline, which is a good thing.
Yeah. You have Uber there though, right?
Yeah, we've had Uber for 6 years. Definitely pre-COVID, like
Mhm.
probably
It's fairly
20
cheaper than a cab.
20 somewhere between 2016 2018. I say probably came in properly. It is cheaper, yeah. It's not obviously the surge charging. So like when there's no surge charging, it's definitely cheaper, probably by about 25 to 35%.
Mhm.
When the surge charging, it can go to the same or even more. So just depends. But in general, it's cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a list of like these lightning round questions, but I can't find what I did with it. I'll try to like think of them off the cuff here. All right, so here's a good one. Do you drink seasonal beers in season, like But, like, I don't know how it is there, but here, it's like all seasonal beers, they come out, like, a season ahead of time. So, like, pumpkin beers come out in August, Christmas beers come out in September, summer beers
Yeah.
come out in, like, March.
So
So it's like, do you drink it you wait until it actually is that season, and then the beer is old, or do you drink it when it's fresh? And it's, like,
we
season early.
this probably differs a bit throughout the UK, but my experience is we have like a twofold issue in that breweries definitely release things ahead of time. Like you said, you get Halloween beers in the end of August, early September. Christmas beers will come out first week in November. Like, and in general, to be honest, the seasonal stuff I more buy for review than I buy for just general, just I'm chilling at home having a beer. And those I'll buy as soon as I can, and then I will review them to get them out with enough time for people to watch it and then go decide whether they want to buy it or not, and make sure it's still available by the time they've seen it. Do you know what I mean? So I try and get it out like a couple of
Yeah.
weeks before it's kind of prime time. On the flip side, though, a lot of our bars, because of the way they buy beer, end up with seasonal stuff, and then I'm going to use seasonal in the loosest sense here. Like, they want dark beer in winter, they want amber beer in spring, and
Right.
light beer in summer. They seem to be about 4 weeks behind. So you walk into a trad pub in the first week of November, say, and go, right, it's properly winter now. I want a stout, and it's still flush with IPAs. On the flip side, you'll get to Easter, you'll walk into the pub and want like a nice hoppy pale, and they've still got all the stouts on. Like, it's a bit, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
quite fit the, and that's because obviously they need to get rid of the stuff they've got before they can put the new thing on and all that stuff. But and I know why it happens, but it's just a funny thing. But in general, I do drink seasonally, but I am really into dark beer. So I drink dark beer most year round, and
Yeah.
then when it gets really hot here, then it's all about German pilsners. Like, that's kind
Yeah.
of my.
I mean, I'll drink a Bourbon County in July. If it's that good.
Yeah,
Um
to be fair, I would happily do so. I don't drink that many impy stouts when it's really hot, but yeah, wouldn't be
Mhm.
unknown.
Is there a difference between a double IPA and an imperial IPA?
Marketing. I think triple IPA is closer to what I would think an imperial IPA is,
Mhm.
because like again, it's all like these terms change. But a modern imperial stout in reality is probably like 8 or 9% plus.
Right.
So if we're going off that, then the triple is closer in terms of ABV
I think it's more
than that.
about the IBUs. Like, 'cause I just it's funny, the
Okay.
short that I posted this morning was the Maharaja IPA. It was from 13 years ago. It was like 10.5% ABV, but it was like 102 IBUs, and, like,
Oh wow.
you don't see IPAs that bitter anymore. Like, because I remember,
No.
like, those old super strong IPAs, they were like syrup, or like the
Yeah.
closest one we still have that you can still get is Dogfish Head 120. You ever had
Right.
that?
Not had it, but see, I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's 100 and well, actually, I think, like, the human palate kind of tops out about 100 IBUs, but yeah, that one's like carbonated syrup. And it's, like, so bitter that, like, it's not even really that bitter.
Yeah. It's just like it's such a shock that you can't really register it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Oh, that's an interesting idea, though, because obviously the imperial, the word imperial is just a bit arbitrary, because
Mhm.
it's just like meant to be the premium version, the over egged version, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it.
Super
Um,
strong, like
yeah, but it's an interesting idea that in IPAs it refers to IBUs. It might do,
mhm.
but yeah, in which case a double makes more sense. But
Mm.
I don't know.
Here's here's another, lightning round question for you. Can beer ever be truly as refreshing as water on a hot day?
Mm, yes, by comparison of the water used to make it. I know this was a lightning round question. I'll make it as brief as I can. Right, like beer made in Scotland or beer made in like the mountains in Germany, the water quality is so good, that mineral quality is so refreshing, it's unreal. If it's that versus generic like water out of London, the beer is more refreshing. But if it's beer versus the same water it was made of, then the water is still going to be more refreshing. So
I would say, yeah, like it's the taste is refreshing. Like I've had IPAs that because they taste like juice, and like it's refreshing while it's in your mouth, but then once you finish it, then like the
yeah,
hops linger, or even just like a standard pilsner, or like even like an adjunct lager, like it's gonna have an
yeah,
aftertaste. It's gonna dry you out. So it's kind of like
true.
it's refreshing because like I can definitely pound like a Pabst Blue Ribbon or something like that, but then I'll chase it with actual cold water.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're confusing the words refreshing and hydrating, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, the beer can be more refreshing, but it
yeah.
can't be more hydrating. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like it's funny, I never thought of that after all these years, because like, yeah, we use hydrating and refresh because like, it's refreshing as in, like, a nice change of pace, or just, like,
Yeah.
um, kind of cleansing your palate or something,
Mhm.
Like, I'll be drinking, like, I drink I'm in Florida, and it gets super hot here, so I have, like, lots of bottled water in the car, and I'll just be drinking water all day, and I'll probably drink, like, 2 liters of water. And then there's certain times where it's like it's 2 or 3 in the afternoon and my day's only halfway over. And I'm just like sick to death of drinking water, and I'll get like an energy drink or something like that. I'm like, I just need something else to taste here.
Yeah, fair, fair.
What is the plural of Guinness?
Guinea.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, is it is it like octopus, octopi, or is it
I hope so.
I've heard a lot of people say
Um,
it's just Guinness, like with sheep or deer. Like you just
it probably is, but I can't help think that the country of Papua New Guinea is actually just plural Guinnesses. So
Mhm.
yeah, who knows?
What is your reaction when a beer that used to be a whale is now available in every gas station?
Mm, I don't know, but it's not something we get very often, to be honest. I've not had a genuine reaction. Probably as long as the quality's there, then like
Mm,
pretty relieved because availability is good, right?
yeah. I
So
wrote a blog about this a long time ago, and it's kind of we could probably do an entire show just on this topic. It's like, are you drinking the beer or are you drinking the cachet? Because like so many beers have like this cachet value to it,
yeah,
and it goes the other way too. Is like stigma, like
yeah,
some beers have a stigma, and it's like you know something like, Joe on our last podcast, we were talking about this because, like, now, like, because he's in California and San Diego, and like he can get Planet of the Elder at gas stations, and like
or
here in
what
Florida,
really?
yeah, or like
Oh,
in supermarkets or whatever. Like it's pretty easy to come by out there.
oh, you got to
You can even
spend,
get Henny Topper out there.
you got to sell a kidney out here to get one.
Yeah, and like the only thing I can kind of compare that to is like like I can get like Founders KBS at the
Yeah,
supermarket. I can get Goose Island Bourbon County at the supermarket, and that used to be really hard to get, you know. But it doesn't change. Like to me, like both those beers' qualities have stayed pretty consistent. Um, like there's just so many people that I like. I always, if you ever encounter beer snobs, like I try not to be a snob. Cause I can always the way that you can dunk on any beer snob is you just say like whatever is like the it beer of the moment, like this the white whale or whatever, or you could just do like do like a classic like Westy 12. Or everybody knows Westy 12. It's the only
yeah,
Trappist beer that you can't just get. You have to go get it. I
yeah,
would say if Westy 12 was available at every gas station, you wouldn't care. That'd be like a ho hum beer.
yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, and I agree. I don't like. I also try not to be too beer snobby. There is times where I feel like I can't help myself. Okay, like this is a genuine. Yesterday, I I did a live stream. You
Mhm.
you
Yeah, I saw that
saw it.
part.
You jumped in on it. I had a few great German beers. I had 3 on the stream. finished the stream up. I had to be up early today, so I was like, I didn't want to drink late in the day. It was an early stream. And finished the stream, went down, had some food. I was like, I just want one more beer, one small beer. Like that'll be my day done. That'll be good. And like we were talking about earlier, like most of the beers in my fridge are for review. So I was like, oh, I don't know what's up. Went down to my kitchen fridge and realized someone, a friend of mine, had been over at Christmas and had left some BrewDog beers in there. I was like, I'm not drinking this to like analyze it. Like it's just to have with dinner. Like, okay,
Right.
I'm sure it'll be okay. I poured it down the drain after 3 sips. Couldn't do it. I was like,
What kind of beer was it?
it's just bad. Like it is just bad. So, and I can't help myself. You know when you've got good stuff lying around upstairs, and then it's like you've got like I can't. Why would I do that to myself? I don't know. But at the same time, if I'm with someone and we go out to a bar and they're like, I want a pint of Amstel. So I don't know if you get Amstel in the US, but it's like one of the cheapest Euro lagers. And they're like, I just want a pint of Amstel. And I'll say, are you sure? And it's not like a critical that it's more like if they just feel like they don't want to, if I've asked them what they want and I'm buying around and then they don't want to say like I want the 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒔𝒕 because it's 4 times the price or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you sure? Because I don't, I'm getting the whatever.
Hey, if you're buying, then I'm getting Bourbon County or
yeah, exactly. But most people are polite and just like, well, I'm like, are you sure? Oh, but no, yeah, really, I like it. I'm like, okay, fine. I don't care what you drink. Just don't make me drink it. Like that, I don't care. Like, so yeah, I try not to be critical of other people's purchasing choices, and I think that's what beer snobbery really is.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a born again snob because I once you become like a certified beer judge and like especially when you homebrew and you start to appreciate all the styles for what they are, and basically as long as the beer doesn't have like diacetyl acetaldehyde DMS, like those nasty chemical flaws, is that you can actually taste what those ingredients are in there. And like I have no problem. Actually, every once in a while, I will get a 4-pack of PBR. Do you guys get PBR over there? Pabst Blue Ribbon?
Not as a regular purchase, but you can pick it up from importers occasionally.
Yeah, I mean it's just a adjunct
Yeah.
macro lager. It's a lot less green apple-y than Budweiser, but it's I get it. I mean I can taste that corn in there and it tastes fine. Like doesn't taste like I'll take that over Budweiser because to me Budweiser is very green apple-y. And like it's funny because like now a lot of American craft breweries are making rice lager, which is basically just Bud Light because I mean that's what Bud Light is. They use rice instead of corn. And so like I was saying, like once you become, especially I think home brewing really helps and like actually studying the style guidelines, like just tasting everything. Like as long as like it's not full of nasty flaws, like it should be a pretty good. Then at that point, all you're arguing is taste, and it's like in your case of like the Amstel or whatever, is like if it's fresh, like the BrewDog you were just talking about, like if that was like a super old beer and it was just oxidized, then like it would taste gross. But I mean, like if you're like, oh, this just is just so mild or just so so lacking in flavor, like if that's why you poured it, or like so become a born again beer snob, and like you'll appreciate everything as long as like it's made with the right way. And then after that, all you're arguing is taste. And then like we can say like some people like peppers in beer, some people like chocolate. Some people can do the corn, some people can't do the corn. Some people love hops. My homebrew club, we actually had this thing. It's like these strips of paper. I forget what they are, but you just put a strip of paper on your tongue, and it would actually measure how sensitive you are to bitterness. And like to some people, it just tastes like, it just tastes like a strip of paper like that. But to other people, it's like super, super bitter. And some people have like super sensitive tasting palates. I don't know if you watch my friend Darwin's beer reviews. I'm pretty sure he's a super taster because you watch any of his reviews, he takes like half a sip, like a little medicine cup sip of a beer, and he gets it like that. And because we've done a couple together, and like I'm like glug 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 glug, and he's just like He's like, okay, yeah, I got it. I don't have a point.
Yeah.
Just random.
No, it's a funny thing. I mean, I always feel like I keep myself grounded in that space because I'm always way more critical of the really high-end hype beers than I am the generic day to day. Like if I review a cheap generic beer, I will tell you that it's cheap and why I think it's a bit cheap and a bit naff. But ultimately, if your budget is X pounds per beer, you could do worse than this. Is normally the case. And on the flip side, when it comes in with the big expensive, people are queuing up and trying to get hold of it beers, it has to be really good for me to be positive about it because a lot of the time it's not worth it. So I feel like I sit in the middle ground in terms of where my beer preference is. But
yeah. We've been going super long, so we should. This seems like a good place to wrap. So let everybody know where they can find you. It's the Crumby Beard, the Crumby Beard on YouTube and on Instagram. Do you have a website or anything?
�crumbybeard.com does exist. It's probably not been updated for a while, and I probably need to do that. So I just go to YouTube, Instagram. I am on TikTok as well. I generally just kind of cross post Instagram to TikTok. So if you're on one or the other, it's fine.
Yeah,
you get the same stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I try and focus majority of my stuff on YouTube because that's where the long form video lies. Yeah, that is really everything. I've got nothing too much to plug. It's just constant stream of beer and whiskey reviews. I'd just like to say thank you very much, sir, for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I would love to see that behind the scenes video. I might be the only one that watch it. Maybe you can start like a Patreon or something, like, or hide it behind a paywall.
Yeah, good work. Good work.
Yeah. All right. Well, as I always say, if you watch all the way in, you are awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Sorry, I don't have anything to cheers with. It looks like you're out of beer too.
I'm out too, but yes, cheers.
Right, we'll just wave like a parade. All right.
Indeed.
Yep.